Welcome to another weekly Forex forecast, traders. Hope you all had a great trading week. With always, we will start with the DXY. So I've been saying I am expecting the dollar to maybe continue to drop to hit this weekly demand at 96.87. If you go back here, you can see the demand zone right here, a nice base rally area of demand. I am expecting price to retrace down to that weekly demand at this point, due to the fact that it is inside of a overall monthly demand, and then I am expecting to see some bullish price action on the dollar after we contact this weekly area of demand. I am expecting it. I am not really sure if we're going to get a move all the way up to supply or not. That is very difficult to tell, but I do personally think we'll be at least seeing a small move off of this demand zone. So once we hit it, it might be best to hold off of US dollar shorts. I'm not saying that price is going to just fall right to that demand zone with no issues. What we could actually be seeing is one of two things. There is a 1 hour gap supply zone up here. You can see we gapped from here to here. So this represents the strong impulse move, which qualifies as a supply zone. So it is possible we do pull back to that supply at 97.64 and then retrace down to that weekly area of demand we were just discussing. It is even possible we break through that 1 hour supply and push up to either one of these 4 hour supply zones. The first one is at 97.97. And the second one, which is arguably the better one and the best one, up at 99.18. It is possible we see retracements to these supply zones to fuel for that move down to that weekly area of demand. Even if, let's say, we hit that weekly demand first and then we retrace to these supply zones, we still could see moves off of them. But then since the monthly demand is in control, it makes these zones lower odds and more likely to just see small moves before they end up breaking. So these are the two 4 hour supply zones I'm going to have on my chart on the DXY and the 4 hour time frame. And then I'm also going to be monitoring that 1 hour supply zone I pointed out at 97.64 as well. And due to the fact that we removed that downward trend line on the 1 hour chart, it definitely can indicate that we could be continuing to pull back on the DXY. All right, on to the forecast for the Euro US dollar on the weekly time frame, blasting through weekly supply here. Maybe I shouldn't say blasting. We did get an initial reaction off of that supply, but nonetheless, we are breaking out to the upside. We have great weekly demand zone down below that could represent a great dip buying opportunity, but we're obviously nowhere close to that right now, and we're really not. There's really no signs of this thing slowing down. I mean, beautiful daily trend to the upside. I guess we did create some sort of daily demand here due to this kind of this explosive move away here, but it's not my favorite zone. It's barely move away. It could work at that daily zone at 115. It's almost not noticeable. So I'm gonna have it on my chart just to kind of see what happens around that area, but it's really not a great zone. What interests me, though, on this 1 hour chart, we've had many trends to the upside. We had a trend line here that was removed. We had a new trend line here, and that was just removed at the end of Friday here. So it's really tricky to tell what is taking place. The 1 hour chart doesn't really seem to want to take off. So what I'd be doing here on the Euro is simply watching this 4 hour chart. But really quick, just want to give a shout out to a couple of the members in the Discord group who have caught some amazing supply and demand zone trades. It's nice to see some of the members really start to learn the strategy well and trade it accordingly. If you want to trade alongside myself and the community, join the Diamond membership for exclusive access to our daily market breakdown videos and catch trades like these. Plus, dive deep with our full-length forecast covering 26 plus markets, our interactive Sunday Zoom sessions, and personal homework to sharpen your strategy. And you'll also join our private Discord group for direct access to me and unlock a complete library of A to Z video lessons to master supply and demand trading. Don't miss out. Let's level up your trading. Links are in the description down below. So as far as the Euro USD chart goes, we have a trend line from here. So you definitely want to have this trend line connected from this low to that low right there. That is our upward trend line on the 4 hour time frame. We have I would basically give this like a 6 out of 10 demand zone here. It is possible we do see a move off the zone. As always, if you don't feel comfortable with just an entry, stop, and take profit at a zone like this, you could just wait for this zone to be hit, look for confirmation on a 15-minute time frame. We will be doing that with the members in the daily market breakdown videos throughout the week if we do get a pullback down to that zone to kind of give us that extra confirmation. It's kind of what you want to do in situations where, if you look at the difference here, this zone is superior to this zone, much, much better. So I'd rather be taking this zone as a set and forget rather than this one. If you are going to take this zone as a set and forget, it might only be good for a small move Might be tricky because the better demand is down below. But at the end of the day, trend to the upside. Watch this trend line on the euro US dollar, guys. It is longs all the way, pretty much on all time frames here. Even if we get deep pullbacks down to 115, even if we get deep pullbacks down to weekly demand, in my opinion, all signs are pointing to the upside here on the euro US dollar. Alrighty, onto the forecast for gold, XAUUSD. This is a very interesting one. Very bearish week. The last couple weeks have been pretty bearish on gold here. Is this the pullback we are seeing down to this weekly demand? Let me know in the comments down below what you think. I'm really hoping so. This is a great dip buying opportunity for not only for swing trades. You can turn a day trade into swing trade in here as well. You can invest in gold long term in that weekly zone as well. It really represents a good buying area. And the daily chart is actually quite interesting. We have an upward trend line from back here, and it is currently it's in play and in control at this time. But we're clearly doing some sort of wedge here. I'm not really familiar with chart patterns, I'll be honest with you guys. I'm purely a price action trader with supply and demand zones, but I'm pretty sure this represents a wedge. Maybe somebody can let me know in the comments down below as well. It seems to be some sort of wedge, so it's possible we even pull back to here and then break out to the upside or to the downside. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that's what happens in some sort of wedge. So we could kind of continue to be wedged in here for the time being. So what do? Well, on the 1 hour chart, we have a nice 1 hour downward trend line, and that trend line is currently being respected. So as long as this 1 hour downward trend line is holding, guys, you could be looking for shorts on a 5-minute time frame. And if you want to look at the 4 hour chart, we have a pretty good 4 hour downward trend line here as well. And what that means is as long as this downward trend line is holding, you could look for shorts on a 15-minute time frame. And that's really about it. I'm not seeing any new zones. Of course, since the higher time frames are trending to the upside on the weekly chart, as soon as if we do break any of these 4 hour zones or, the 1 hour zone, if we do get a demand zone that's formed there, that will represent a good dip buying opportunity. We got a couple of them here, but we ended up breaking them after getting small trades off of them. We're kind of looking for that big trade now, and that could be coming around the corner if we do break the downward trend line. But for now, you could be day trading short the downward trend lines on the 1 hour chart and the 4 hour time frame. Maybe we're pulling back down to that weekly demand. It's very difficult to tell right now. We also want to watch this upper trend line on the daily time frame as well. Okay, on to the forecast for the USDJPY. I did think we were going to target the liquidity down here on the weekly time frame, but it looks like the support level is holding. So it doesn't really look like we are pulling back down to there for now. On the daily chart, something very interesting is setting up on the daily chart. We had just on itself, this is a pretty good supply zone here. Nice basing. The move away is pretty good. We took out a low, which doesn't really qualify it as me. Remove some sort of demand down below, in my opinion. And we did kind of have another supply level here as well. But in my opinion, the better supply is up here. This is a good supply zone on its own, but what I really like setting up now is some sort of liquidity resistance forming here, which I really like. So if we do continue to see bullish price action on the dollar, let's say we react off that weekly demand I was talking about on the DXY, it's possible we do pull up, hopefully react a third time because we've already created the resistance area and then reacted of it once. Actually, it'd be the second reaction. Second reaction would be great, and then a pullback to that supply. I think it could represent a good supply zone setup at 149.29. I think it's a good supply, especially if we create that third or second touch, or whatever you want to call it, and then a pullback. Even if we did just retrace up to it now, it looks like a clear liquidity search to me, so definitely could see a push to the downside. So if you guys, there's videos on my channel talking about these liquidity search zones, so definitely check those out and hit that like and subscribe button if you guys are new to the channel. I do these forecasts every single Saturday for free, so make sure you subscribe so you never miss a video. So I like the supply zone. If we do get a pullback, I think it's a good possibility we see a move off of that supply. On the 1 hour chart, we had a 1 hour downward trend, and that was removed. So there's really not a lot going on. I'll be honest with you guys. There's not a lot of zones for me to point out for you guys this week for this weekly Forex forecast. We do have a supply zone all the way up here. It's just so far away. It's definitely possible we retrace up to that supply within the week. So it's a zone you want to have in your charts at 147.31. I would have liked to pull back sooner than later. I think if we got the pullback sooner than later, we could have got a bigger risk to reward. But since price has taken so far to pull back, it might be only best to look for a 3-to-1 max off of this and nothing more. Unless you could just trail your stop loss and get as much out of it as you can. It's possible as well. But that's the supply zone. I would be watching on the 1 hour chart. On the 4 hour time frame, we had a 4 hour downward trend. So what I will say is if this low gets removed right here, then the 4 hour downward trend will continue, and then we can continue to look for shorts on a 15-minute time frame. But just not a lot going on, no fresh zones, and it's just kind of been how it's been this past week, and hopefully not this coming week. But it is summer, guys, and I've been telling the members, summertime, usually the markets are getting a little bit slower, so it's something we got to be prepared for. Alrighty, on to the forecast for the GBPUSD. We just removed a pretty significant weekly supply zone, in my opinion, and I'm not going to draw a weekly demand zone yet because we might have one forming here. I'm not going to get into theory and stuff. I saved that for the Sunday Zoom sessions for the members. I'm not going to get into theory here, but there might be a zone here, and there might be one here. We don't know until we get another weekly candle close. But look, this is looking really strong. Trends to the upside here on the weekly chart, really looking strong. On the daily time frame here, we have a nice trend line to the upside, so it's really signaling strength. We have a mediocre daily demand zone down below. This could act as kind of a backstop if we do break all the 4 hour zones. It could act as a backstop to push price even further. So I would have that daily zone on your charts. I would also have the trend line to the upside on the daily chart as well. Over here on the 1 hour chart, we do have a couple zones. This one is not my favorite zone. It's kind of small. But we could see move off of it, especially since if we just zoom in a little bit here, we're kind of basing out here. So we could be creating some sort of liquidity trap here and see a move off the zone. So best case scenario, let me just draw it out for you guys, is we can get, hopefully, another reaction off of this support level, really confirm their support here with our real demand zone down below, and boom, that will be our demand zone set up at 1.367. It could work out. The more reactions we get off this support level, the higher odds that trade is going to be. So that is our option right now on the 1 hour chart. We could also be waiting for this very proven area of supply to be taken out as well, and potentially getting a long trade off of that zone. Going down, we do have a 1 hour zone all the way down at 1.349. Its price has been it's been taking so long for a pullback down to this zone, but it's a good zone. If we look at what it accomplished over here, it did remove a very proven area of supply. So I think it's a good zone. The issue with it, it's taken so far to pull back to it. So if you do want to trade this zone, guys, this one might be only good for that 1-to-1, 2-to-1, maybe 3-to-1 move max before we continue to break it if we do get that pullback. And why do I think we could break that? Well, very simple. If we go to a higher time frame, which is the 4 hour chart, the reason I think we could break it is because we have a better 4 hour demand zone down below. And this 4 hour demand zone is also inside of that daily demand zone we were talking about earlier. So a couple zones here on the GBPUSD. Hopefully everything I said about risk reward and being aggressive with your stop loss and everything, hopefully all that makes sense. Any questions, guys, don't hesitate to leave a comment. I'll respond to every single comment. All right, guys, on to the forecast for the USDCAD. On this weekly time frame, we have a weekly area of demand and control. If you've been watching my forecast for the past, since the start of 2025, I've been pointing out this weekly area demand. I mean, back in September, October of 2024, I was pointing out this weekly demand. We're finally here. We are getting a nice reaction off of this weekly zone. So what that tells us is we want to be looking for buys. And I will say, on this daily chart, guys, significant things are taking place. We have two trend line here. In my opinion, both are valid. So this initial daily downward trend line is removed. This is the more significant one. If we can remove that, that is going to be an extremely bullish sign on the USDCAD. But for now, we actually have a 4 hour demand zone down below. So what this 4 hour demand zone, it represents a confirmation trade. It's a very popular type of trading methodology. Basically, we have that weekly demand and control down here, right? The weekly demand was hit. 4 hour demand was created when we removed this downward trend line, right? And then we pushed up. Now we have our demand zone trade. All this stuff you guys can also learn in the supply and demand full course PDF, which is a 38-page document that comes with the Diamond membership. Definitely want to have this on your side, by your side, to help you and aid you with your trading. Every single day is kind of your guidebook. So check it out. Comes with the membership. So this 4 hour demand zone is good. I like that we based out before it, and I think we could see a reaction off the zone. I think it's a high probability area. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll take a loss at this trade all day, especially since it has a weekly time frame, higher time frame analysis along with it. So You could be looking for longs in this 4-hour demand zone simply with an entry, stop, and take profit above. That would be fine. You could be waiting for the zone to be hit. You could be looking for day trading confirmation. I would stick to a 50-minute chart. Once the zone is hit, that is also a possibility. The second option is on the 1-hour chart here. We had a 1-hour demand zone down below, and this 1-hour demand zone it's kind of embedded inside of that overall 4-hour zone. So what this 1-hour zone is, it's a 1-hour demand zone inside of a 4-hour demand zone inside of a weekly demand zone. So it's a pretty good zone, in my opinion. You might want to have a wider stop on this one. It's actually giving you the opportunity to put your entry here and then your stop below the overall 4-hour zone with extra protection. So it could work out. I thought we were breaking that downward trend line there. Doesn't look like we are. And actually, we're setting up for a potentially nice trade off this 1-hour supply. Since the weekly demands in control, all supply zone trades, guys, are going to be just lower odds because you're trading a 1-hour supply zone against a weekly demand zone. It just might not work out the best. So this supply up here is decent at 1.37, but only maybe for a potential small move due to the fact that it's a liquidity search trap. So definitely could work there on the USDCAD at that 1-hour supply for a short little short trade, and then like I said, that 1-hour demand zone down below. But it is looking strong here. I'm hoping we can see the 1-hour downward trend continue to pull back down to that 4-hour demand zone where we can get great dip buying opportunities. Whether you're a swing trader or you're a day trader, that zone is going to be pretty good there on the USDCAD, especially with the higher time frame confluence as well. Alrighty, on to the forecast for the AUDUSD. There's really not a lot to go off on the weekly time frame here. If we go to the daily time frame, this is not looking good either. However, I do kind of like that we are seeing at least bigger moves to the downside, and we just broke that high there. It's at least telling me that we might kind of break out of this boring channel we've been in. We did break below it. I'm hoping we could break out of it. It's just been really bad price action on the Aussie the last couple weeks, especially on the higher time frames, guys. So what I will say is on the lower time frames on the 4-hour chart here, we do have a trend to the upside. You could be looking for day trading longs, but if you really start to pull back here, I would kind of hold off. We do have a demand zone down below. It's kind of just an obvious pivot low though, so it might be best to trade the euro and the pound, in my opinion, at the 4-hour zones on them. So yeah, you could look for longs in here. I think day trading confirmation there will be a little bit better, in my opinion. Looking on the 1-hour chart, we have a 1-hour zone down below here. That's just sitting right before the 4-hour zone. So if you do want to trade the zone, it's got to be a quick 1-to-1. That's it. Because I think we could see it's more high odds that we see a move off the 4-hour zone rather than this 1-hour zone that's sitting right above it. So definitely something that you want to consider if you are going to get in long at that 1-hour area of demand. We had a trend line here. Barely a trend line. I don't even want to call it a trend line, but it was removed. So it's tricky. It's very tricky on the Aussie right now. I would just be waiting for those zones to be hit. Me personally, I'd rather be trading the GBPUSD, guys, or the euro. That's just my honest opinion. All right, on to the forecast for the USDCHF. This is looking very similar to the DXY. Weekly demand down below, very, very close to the weekly demand on the DXY. So you can see it's the zone from back here. So I think we will probably continue to fall and hit that weekly area of demand. We do have a couple of trading opportunities. On the 1-hour chart, we have a 1-hour downward trend line that is currently being respected. As long as this downward trend line is holding, I think shorts on a 5-minute time frame is going to be completely reasonable. But as soon as we break that, and sorry, we actually have some supply zones up here. That was already pretty much a trade, but actually that zone's still fresh, my bad. So anyways, you could be looking for shorts on the day trading time frames. That is fine. Pullbacks up to that supply at 0.80, also going to be decent. Decent little supplies on there. Almost contacted it. Makes me a little bit worried, but I think it's a good 1-hour area of supply there on the USD Swiss. And on the 4-hour chart, we have a couple 4-hour areas of supply as well. This one's not bad. I do much prefer the supply up above. I think this one we could see maybe a 1-to-1, maybe a 2-to-1 move off of. I think we could break it. So there's money to be made here off the zone. It's just I would be more aggressive with your profit taking, where if we get a pullback up to this supply, I think that's where we could see that bigger move and target the low. So 2 supply zones here, and this is very, very important. So listen up. Both of these supply zones are very good. Or sorry, this one's very good. This one's not bad. Both of them are potentially tradable. However, if we contact that weekly demand zone first, all of these trades, all of these supply zones trades, they basically go from, let's say they're a 10 out of 10, which they're not. Let's say they're a 10 out of 10. They go to like a 7 out of 10. Why? Because weekly demand's in control, and now you're trading a 4-hour supply zone after a weekly demand is in control, guys. So if that does take place, again, this is going to be a small risk reward trade anyways, regardless if the weekly demand is hit or not. But if the weekly demand is hit first, then we pull up to the supply zone, you want to look for a quick 2-to-1 max. If we pull up now and we don't hit the weekly demand zone, then I think we could see that bigger move. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Again, guys, questions, leave them in the comments down below. I'll respond to every single comment. Last but not least, we are on to crude oil. On the daily time frame, we removed a supply zone with this demand zone. This demand zone is currently holding up price. Yes, price tanked. Where do we stop? At a demand zone. I'm not saying this demand zone is going to break, but guys, whether you're trading support and resistance, bull flags, bear flags, whatever you're trading, you always want to watch at least the higher time frame zones because they act as magnets, in my opinion. Why do I think this daily demand is going to break? The reason is because we have a better weekly demand sitting just below at 63.33. I think this is where the bigger move is going to happen. And I'm really not sure how big it's going to be. It might only be to this trend line, just like we have seen multiple times now. So if we're going to see a big move, it's going to be from this weekly demand zone, in my opinion. I think that's where we might be headed, and then pull back to that trend line. So we could see the oil chart continue to drop here. We do have pretty much one option and one option only. We are either going to wait for the supply zone to short at 73.50, but remember, if the weekly demand zone hits first, this supply zone becomes lower odds and lower profit available. If we retrace up now, it's a good supply zone we could see a bigger move off of to pull back down to that weekly area demand. That is our supply zone for shorts. It's kind of a bigger zone, so you might want to look for day trading confirmation there. It might be a little bit better. We do have a demand zone from back here. It's kind of a, let me just see really quick. Where is this 4-hour zone located? So this 4-hour zone is actually located right inside of a weekly demand zone. So if you want to take a semi-risky set and forget trade, this would be our demand zone long at 61.07. Gap zone, remove the trend line. It's not bad. We definitely could see some sort of move off of it. So it might be one that could be worth having on your charts. Might only get a small move off of it because it's taken so far to pull back into it. But what makes me second guess that thought is the fact that this is inside of a weekly demand zone where we can then, so a small move on the weekly chart is like this, right? That's a small move on the weekly chart. But I mean, if you take your risk reward with a small move on a weekly chart, if you take your risk reward like that, that's an over 5-to-1 trade. So we definitely could see that trade work out. Definitely want to have it on your charts, and the weekly demand zone as well on crude oil. If you want to watch the full-length forecast and get my daily chart analysis and daily market breakdown videos, join the Diamond membership. Links are in the description down below.